Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to today's Experienced Grad York session, How to Write a Statement of Interest. Today we have Alice MacLachlan, Vice-Provost and Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies presenting this session. Alice, over to you.
Thank you so much. And I just want to take a minute to welcome everyone to this webinar. It's lovely to see so many people with an interest in graduate school and graduate studies. I know that this can be a really important decision to make and an important time to ready yourself for graduate school. And my hope is, as sometimes confusing and mystifying as the process can be, I can help shed light a little bit on how to do a really strong application to graduate school. And of course, the statement of interest, your expression of your own voice, is an important part of that. In fact, what I like to say is the statement of interest represents the part of your application that you have the most control over and that is the most authentically who you are as a researcher, a scholar, a future change maker, and ideally a future graduate student at York or elsewhere. And so today I'm going to take you through how to make sure that your authentic voice, interests, capabilities, and plans are conveyed in this statement of interest to best showcase you and your fit or your match for the graduate program of your choice. Before I do that, and because this is a virtual webinar and we are attending together in cyberspace from different places and spaces, I want to take a minute just to acknowledge the land where I am on today, with the hope that wherever you are, in Toronto, in Canada, in the world, you can take a moment to reflect on what you know and perhaps even go learn a little bit about the history and the peoples who are part of the history of the land that you are on. For my part, I am on campus at York University, and so I am honored to be able to say that York University recognizes that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of the university. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to share and care peaceably for the Great Lakes region. And I suppose with this acknowledgement, we can take a moment to recognize how even standard forms and processes can convey an extraordinary amount of meaning and significance and storytelling if we work to imbue them with that meaning. So thank you for taking a moment to meaningfully acknowledge the territories on which I am today, and I hope you have done the same for your own. Now, what I would like to do is start with a brief overview of this session. And as I've said already, this is about a statement of interest. So we need to start by talking about what a statement of interest does and what it's for. I will then offer a little bit of context in thinking about your graduate application by talking about the different kinds of graduate programs that are out there and how the kind of graduate program you're applying to, whether it's master's or PhD, whether it's a research or professional program, don't panic if none of those terms make sense to you yet, we'll get to it, how these will help shape what you put in your statement of interest. But nevertheless, a statement of interest, all statements of interest for any level, for any kind of program, really have to convey five things. So a five-fingered hand is a good way to remember it. And that is, it has to tell you what you want to do in this program, more what, and I'll say a little bit about the difference between what and more what as we go through this, why you're doing it, where and with whom, and what next. So what, more what, why you're able to do it, why you're the right person to do it, where you want to do it and with whom, and what next, what your long-term vision or goals are that this program of advanced study in graduate school will fit into in the long run for your future success and your impact in the world. So what a statement of interest is, what on earth these things are that you're applying to, what a statement of interest needs to convey, and then we'll talk a little bit about how to write it, how to make sure that your statement is top quality by brainstorming, planning, writing, proofreading, and then sharing with others. And then if there's a little bit of time before we get to questions, I'll take a minute to talk about one of the other key research materials in your application, namely your writing sample. And I'll just say right now, the reason that I've picked the statement of interest and the writing sample. Now, note, statement of interest is sometimes called a personal statement, but it really means your story, your explanation of yourself and why you're applying. The statement of interest and the writing sample are the two elements of your application that you have the most control over right here and now as you're applying. Of course, you had a lot of control over your grades. I know all of you worked extremely hard to get the good grades that you have, but that's done. Your transcript is set, they're there. You may be finishing up your courses or perhaps only in your third year, but a lot of your transcript is set and will be the thing that goes forward. Same with your CV. You've done what you've done. You've completed the work study or the opportunities that you've done. That's all to some extent already set in stone. You can choose who your referees are, but you can't choose what they're going to say about you. Again, you'll likely pick people who have very good and very strong things to say. But all of that has to do with your background to this point. And at this point in time, you can't go back and change the past. But your statement of interest and your writing sample are what you can control right now. You can make them as strong as possible to present the best possible first impression to your graduate program's admissions committee. And that's why they are so central and so important to your application. So let's start by talking about the statement of interest. What does a statement of interest do? In many ways, a statement of interest is like an introduction and a handshake. It introduces you, who you are as a thinker, a scholar, a researcher, perhaps a scientist or a professional or an educator or an artist. It introduces you to your prospective program, the admissions committee of that program, and potentially to your future supervisor or your program director. Because it is an introduction to what you want them to know about you, this is your most direct opportunity to convey your research or professional identity, the way you want to be seen to them, and your authentic voice, who you are as a scholar. So what drives you? How do you think about problems? How do you approach them? What is your confidence level? In that way, your statement of interest is an expression of your critical, creative, professional, or theoretical interest in the field. Why you want to be a biologist, what draws you to advanced study in law, what about you as an MBA is the thing that is making you take this extraordinary step, and so on. And the final thing that a statement of interest does is it provides an overview of your research or professional profile. It allows them to assess you as a potential student in their program. What are your interests? What is your background? What do you see as your strengths? And importantly, something that isn't going to be conveyed anywhere else in your application. What are your goals within the degree? What's the topic you might want to pursue for your master's thesis or dissertation? What do you see yourself achieving with this? Why does it matter? And maybe what your long-term goals are. Are you thinking about a career in a particular field and you believe that this degree will help you? Are you interested in long-term research, whether that's in the academy? By academy, I mean research universities or related institutes, or perhaps outside of it, perhaps doing applied research in a particular industry or in an industry partnership or even for the government. So the statement of interest shows who you are as a researcher or a professional so that folks on the other side of this process, the admissions committee, to whom you're only an application line and number, can evaluate whether you are a good fit for their program. Do your goals match with what they have to offer? Does your background match what they're looking for? Can you do the kind of project you're describing here in terms of the program that they provide? What is the fit? And so that's why a statement of interest is so important and why you need to do a very good job to show yourself in the best possible light, but also a really authentic job. Because if they're looking for the right fit, you want to make sure you're representing yourself honestly so that when you get into the program and you start, it really is a good fit for your background, your interests, and your goals. Now I'm going to say a little bit about the different kinds of programs you can be applying to, because that will make a difference in how you shape and tailor your statement of interest. So there are lots of different kinds of graduate degree programs out there. And there's a couple of ways of distinguishing them. One is the level. So for those of you who are still completing your bachelor's or your undergraduate degree, in almost all cases, the next level of study you would do at the graduate or advanced level would be a master's. Now, I've written MA up there, but of course, a master's could be a Master of Arts, a Master's of Education, an MEd, an MSc, a Master of Science, an MEng, a Master of Engineering, an MBA, a Master of Business, an LLM, a Master's of Law. There are lots of different kinds of master's degree, but those are typically the next level. And then if you are interested in pursuing a research career, again, either in the academy or in the public sector or in the private sector partnership, you would then most typically go on and do what's called a doctorate degree. A doctorate degree is most often a doctor of philosophy, a PhD. So those are the levels of graduate studies. There's also two different most graduate programs can fit more or less under the umbrella of being a research graduate program or a professional graduate program. And the keeners among you will have caught that I paused just there, because let's be honest, a lot of programs have a little bit of each. A research graduate program is typically oriented towards pure research, whether in the sciences, the social sciences, humanities, the fine arts, business, engineering, law, or elsewhere. Typically, a research master's is not a terminal degree. That means it's not the final degree you do, and you could go on and do a doctorate and then perhaps pursue a career in academia, that's at universities or elsewhere in research. A professional degree is more likely, especially in Canada and at York, to be at the master's level. A professional degree is typically, but not always, a terminal degree. And by that, I mean it's typically the highest level of degree you would pursue. Often, a professional master's has some element of work integrated learning in it, a placement of some kind, or an internship. It is less focused, though not entirely, on what we might call pure research or a specific research project, and is more focused on integrating integrating your studies with expertise in your profession, or with developing a particular professional specialization, or in further developing a specialization that you already have. Now, if you're not sure which degree you're applying to, whether it's research or professional, there are other ways of telling. Typically, though not always, research degrees may offer funding packages, may be able to move from first the master's level until the PhD level, and will most likely have an independent research project, a thesis or a dissertation, at the center of the degree in which you are expected to do your own independent research. So I'll say a little bit more about key differences, but first let's focus on how you don't need to worry about all these distinctions. No matter whether you're applying to a research or a professional program, a master's or a PhD, there are certain things that all statements of interest should communicate. First of all, your critical interest in the discipline of the field, what you are intending to go into this study in order to do in this field. Maybe a topic you wish to pursue, a question you want to answer, a challenge or a critique you want to make, or a particular skill that you want to develop. It should also not just identify that you're interested in a big subject area. I love astronomy. I want to pursue a degree in chemistry because I like chemistry. I have always been drawn to literature, and so I want a master's in literature. It should also communicate the area, the subfield, the type of study, perhaps the historical period or the geographical area that you are interested in. So what is your particular critical interest in this discipline or field? What is the subfield that you want to work in? So the period of history, the type of inorganic chemistry, perhaps the particular research lab or project, the knowledge or skills you want to acquire in this degree. So those are all the things that draw you to where you want to go. Your critical interest in the field, the subfield, the knowledge or skills you want to acquire. That's sort of what you're looking for. And then, of course, what you bring to the table. All statements of interest should communicate your relevant background training, any life experiences that are relevant to this. Perhaps if you're applying to a master's in anthropology and you've traveled extensively in the region you wish to study, including maybe language immersion courses or work experience or family history or life experience, that it makes sense of this desire, that might be something to relevantly bring in, and your personal strengths. So are you a driven and independent worker? Do you have sort of relevant professional skills, perhaps in project management, or in writing or research? Are you dedicated, confident, committed, driven, all of these things? Your background training, your life experience, and your personal skills that together as a bundle make you the right fit for the program, not just the program the right fit for you. So why you want to be here and why you're the right person to be here. And then, of course, the broader context. Why are you the person out of all the people who are interested in this master's degree or this doctorate? Why should we invest our time and energy and funding and all of this in what you have to offer? And that means sharing your academic and professional goals. Do you want to go on to be a professor of history? Do you want to go on to the law? Are you pursuing a long-term career in biotechnology management or in business administration or in financial accountability? What is the overall goal that this program advanced study will help you pursue? So that's what all statements should do. Here are some key differences between the different types of degrees. One difference between the master's and the PhD. At the master's level, you may not have a particular topic or problem you intend to research yet. You may have done very well at your undergraduate. Perhaps you're a top student. Perhaps you loved all of your sociology courses, or the best time you had at York was your time in this biochemistry lab. But you know roughly what area you're interested in, you know what you'd like to pursue yet, but you don't yet have a research project or a question or a topic. That's okay. Even research master's degrees will most likely begin with advanced coursework with graduate seminars, and these will help you shape or hone your interest. At the PhD level, you don't necessarily in all fields have to have a project fully worked out yet, but it's more common that a strong application would describe something like the kind of project you'd like to pursue. Perhaps you're interested in looking at data ethics of artificial intelligence and questions around sort of data mining in developing countries, and how the benefits of AI, whether the benefits of the AI that is produced by mining people's data is being brought back to the people whose data was mined, something like that. You wouldn't have everything worked out about the project yet because you're coming here to work it out, but you might have a sense of it. Another difference between the master's and the PhD, at the master's level, particular faculty members may be less relevant than the overall program strengths and offerings. You might be applying to do your PhD in disaster and emergency management at York, your master's in disaster and emergency management at York, because you know about the overall strength of the program. You know that we've always been a leader and a sort of groundbreaking in this field. You've heard about the particular courses or professional opportunities that are available. At the PhD level, it's typical for a research degree that we would expect you to be able to identify one or two or three faculty members you wanted to work with. In not all fields would you be expected to have someone who's agreed to be your supervisor in advance. This is common in the sciences and to a lesser extent in the fine arts, less so in the social sciences and humanities. You might just be applying without having identified a supervisor yet. But we'd still expect you to say, I'm applying to your program because my research interests align exactly with the current work project of Professor so-and-so. I'm also interested in this professor's strength in the area. I know that I could learn a lot from this professor. There's some sense in which if you are applying to a PhD, which is at the highest level of research degree, to this program, say to York, we would expect you to have some sense of why your research is a good fit for the leading researchers at our institution. And we wouldn't necessarily expect that at the master's level. Now, the other difference I just want to touch on quickly is the difference between professional and research programs. For professional programs, you'd be talking more about your expertise, your specialization, your professional goals. And in research programs, you'd be talking more about a specific research project. Now, if you're not sure what I mean by professional or research programs, here's what I will say. The vast majority of degrees at a research university like York, advanced graduate degrees are typically still research graduate degrees. So if you're doing a master's in history, in philosophy, in film studies, in chemistry, in physics, typically that would be a research degree. You'd be expected to work with a researcher. And again, if you see that there's the opportunity to go on to a PhD, that's a research degree. If you are looking at a degree that's tied to a particular field, that's typically a terminal degree in that program, it focuses more on work integrated learning, that maybe doesn't have funding attached to it, that's more likely to be a professional degree. But honestly, your own context will tell you whether you're applying to a research or professional degree, because are you applying because you are potentially interested in pursuing a career in research, or is it because you're interested in pursuing a career, or you're already in a career in a particular profession, and this could help you in your career in law or financial accountability or biotechnology or engineering, so on. So those are the degrees. Let's talk about what goes on the paper in your statement of interest. Before you begin, do your research. Look up the program, the faculty, the school, the university to which you are applying. Most will have information pages that tell you about the program in general. These will say things like about us, or research, or faculty, or student profiles, or news. Read these. These will give you a sense of the program, its focuses, its strengths. Like, is this a program that's famously, famous for a particular theoretical approach or particular methodology, or definitely studies this area, who's the geography of the Middle East or Latin America is a particular focus. Learn about the program you're going into so you can speak knowledgeably about what it is you're interested in doing and why you're a good fit for that. If you say you are coming to York to work particularly on a particular 19th century German philosopher, and there's no one in our program who teaches or researches that particular 19th century German philosopher, then we're going to think, oh, not only is this person maybe not a good fit for us, did they mean to apply to us, or were they looking for a different program, maybe the University of York in England? We'll still assess your application for its strengths and so on, but it'll cause us to pause and think, wait, will this work? Then in terms of the specifics, make sure you check out the future students page to get instructions, learn prerequisites for the degree, find out whether you need to name a supervisor to apply or not. Again, very common in the sciences or STEM fields, less common in a lot of social sciences and humanities. Look for the current students page. I know you're not a current student yet, that's the long-term goal, but that will tell you a little bit about the structure of the program. How many courses do you need to take? Are there comprehensive exams? Do you need to write a major research paper? Do you need to write a thesis? What are the timelines? How long are you expected to do everything? When do particular milestones come in? When are you expected to have a supervisor by? When do you have to have your proposal submitted, and so on? So all of this is important to know when you're doing your research. Now, if you have questions, sometimes it can be hard to know who to write to. And I just want to highlight two particular roles. If you have academic questions, so about the prerequisites for the program, about whether or not certain supervisors are going to be available next year, anything about the academic structure of the program, the person you want to write to is the GPD, or the Graduate Program Director. This is the faculty member in charge of the program. If you have administrative or process questions about the deadline, about how to submit things, about something that's a bit confusing on the website and you want to double check you've understood it, then you want to contact the other person who's key to a program, the GPA, or the Graduate Program Assistant or Graduate Program Administrator. They handle the administrative side of things. The GPD and the GPA can work together to answer all your questions. If it's an academic question, ask the GPD. If it's an administrative question, ask the GPA. All right, so you've done all your research. It's time to sit down and think about what goes in your statement of interest. And what is, in fact, the first question you want to answer? Remember, I said there's 5. What, more what, why, where and with whom, and how come, what's next? So let's talk about these. The what. For a research program, your what is what you want to research. An idea, an issue, a debate, a problem, an area of investigation which grabs your attention and should be researched. This is what I am coming to York to study. The professional, same thing, more or less, just slightly tweaked. An idea, an issue, a debate, or a problem in the discipline which grabs your attention and relates to you and your professional experience. Perhaps a particular puzzle in the accounting of a particular kind of transnational corporation or something like that. So that is the first thing you want to do is answer the big what. This is what I'm coming to do. This is what grabs me and appeals to me. And feel free to make this as compelling or as much of a hook as possible. But you can't just have the what. You're applying to grad school. You're an excellent student. You're advanced. You already know that when you make a claim or when you identify something, you need to contextualize it. And that's where the more what comes in. So contextualize your focus, situate it in the field, connect it to relevant debates. I mentioned as an example, sort of a question about data ethics in artificial intelligence. You might situate this to other moral questions in artificial intelligence or other issues in data ethics, or perhaps a longstanding tradition of extractivism or issues of mercantilism where forces in the West have extracted valuable sort of value of some sort from other parts of the world and have failed to return that value. You could talk about that history. So contextualize your focus, then develop your focus. How would you go about learning more about this debate, exploring, analyzing, researching? Are there courses you want to take? Are there professors you want to talk to? Are there opportunities in this program, perhaps internships available or fieldwork possibilities that would allow you to go and develop this focus? Now, here's the trick. The more what paragraph is actually doing two things, or it could be part of the same paragraph, but the more what part of your essay is not just saying more about the field, it's also an opportunity to demonstrate that you know how to do anthropology or how to do AI ethics or how to do chemistry. It's to demonstrate your research skills, your critical thinking, your understanding of what questions in this discipline look like and how you go about answering them. So remember, that's what you're interested in doing. Now the why, and really the why is why me, or actually why you. And in the why, you have to explain why you are qualified to undertake this particular project and this degree. So this would mean identifying relevant background studies. So my strong background in this field, including multiple fourth-year courses, seminars, your good grades, any awards you've won, any undergraduate research opportunities or work study opportunities you had that helped you build awareness. Maybe you spent time in a professor's lab, or you had the opportunity to participate or do your own undergraduate research, perhaps a conference. Any of your studies, training, experiences, and strengths that will equip you to tackle the issue, idea, debate, or problem which had grabbed your attention. So what you're going to work on, contextualizing that what, showing how you will develop it. Then the why me question, explaining why you are well placed to take on this project. Those are the first three of our questions. Then, of course, you have to explain why you're applying here to do it. And that's the where or with whom. So this is the project you want to work on. You're well set up to do it. The next question is, well, why are you applying to this program? With whom do you want to do it? So explain why this program is the right place to undertake your research or to develop your professional expertise. And keep in mind, again, for the master's, you might not be talking about a solo research project you know, but more why this is the right place to make you ready to take on such a project or to develop your expertise in this subfield. Now, if relevant, feel free at this point to mention particular faculty members, a research cluster, a program offering or opportunity from which you would benefit. Maybe a diploma that you can take at the same time that would help. So you want to come and do your master's in anthropology, but you're interested in getting a graduate diploma in Latin American studies at the same time. That's what makes this especially appealing to you because your long-term goal is to do field work in Argentina. So where and with whom should identify why this is the right program to pursue the what. You're the right person to do the what, that's the why me, and this is the right place to do it. Now, for some fields in STEM or fine arts, you may absolutely need to identify a potential supervisor or even have already secured agreement from a professor that they will be your supervisor. This is not always true for other applications. I should have said, as well as being the Dean of Graduate Studies, my background is in philosophy. I'm a professor in the philosophy department in the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies. In philosophy, you wouldn't necessarily have had to already have secured agreement from a supervisor, but it would be understood that you would show that the kind of work you want to do fits well with one or two or three people in the program. So you want to come to this place to work on political philosophy because of professors X, Y, and Z, or something like that. And then the last question you want to answer in this statement of interest is, of course, what next? And that's sort of looking beyond the degree to the bigger picture. So you've totally persuaded the admissions committee that you have a project, you understand how to contextualize it, you're the right person to do it, this is the right place to do it. You still need to sort of, this is in some sense the bigger why, or how come. And so that the last thing is to explain how this project or this degree will fit into your longer term career and professional plans. What future do you see with this degree that makes it worth doing it? Now you might think, oh, well, that's my business, not theirs. But first of all, we are invested in you. And part of accepting you as a graduate student is saying, please join our academic community as a peer and a scholar. And so we want to understand the reasons why you're doing it. So we understand your commitment to the work and so on. But it also helps us see whether we can give you the right background for these long-term career goals and so on. So that's what you need to fit into a statement. What, more what, why me, why here, if you like, or another way to put this is where and with whom, and then what next or how come, the long-term purpose or reason for doing this. Simple, right? Of course, I understand the question is, how do I still get all this down? This can be very intimidating to do, particularly in a limited word length, limited page or so. So how do you write it? Start by brainstorming. I assume some of you on this call don't yet have your what in mind. You know you love your field. You know you're drawn to English or education has always spoken to you, but you're not quite sure what the what is. In fact, you could imagine 3 or 4 or 5, and it's hard to choose. So start by brainstorming. Take a blank piece of paper, write down everything. What are the topics, the questions, the approaches that have interested you in your studies? Which classes did you love? What paper did you like writing? What lab work really grabbed you? Which professor made you think, I wish I could work with this person forever, or I want to be this person? Which of these could you see yourself pursuing as a project for 1 year or 4 or 5 years and doing a degree in? Once you have a sense, and this may be a very messy page or a number of pages, start circling the things that fit together that work. Maybe a question, maybe a particular class, an area, and so on. And see if you can pull out something like a coherent what from that. This is not a contract written in stone. This is the best, most authentic picture of what your interest is at this time. Then start outlining your statement. Notice I've suggested a pretty standard 5-paragraph structure, the what, more what, why me, where and with whom, what next or how come. Start with that, but you may play with it. You might be a better writer than I am. See what makes sense for your particular research or professional interest. Don't forget to do your research about the program when you're doing this. There's no good developing the very perfect what project that definitely matches something you'd be interested in if you haven't checked to make sure that the program you want to go to is a place where you can pursue this. So you're going to need to be matching it. You may want to have your whole idea worked out and then figure out where to go to pursue this idea. Or you may have a sense of where you want to be because professors have recommended it, or you know it's an excellent reputation. You have 3 or 4 projects and you want to see which of these possible projects is a good fit for this institution. The direction you go on will very much depend on you. So start by brainstorming, outline your statement, and then write it up. And here is the advice that I want to give you more than anything else. Please use clear and direct language. Be precise as much as you can. Don't overdo the jargon. Write directly, write in simple sentences. I don't think that there's any program where we are looking to see the number of large words you use to decide whether you want to be in graduate school. Obviously, sometimes being precise requires using technical terms and you should use them, but don't overdo the jargon. Let your background, the kind of project you're interested in, your GPA, your transcripts, your CV speak for itself to your expertise. Remember, most programs will have an admissions committee made up of a number of people in different subfields. So not everyone who's reading your application essay will be in exactly the same research area or subfield as you. So be clear. If possible, start with a hook, something that grabs you, perhaps a statement or a reference to pop culture if you want. I mean, don't overdo this. You don't want to get cute or cutesy or clever, but just something that practice with friends and family. See what gets them understanding that this research matters. Why do you want to work on a particular vaccine? What interests you about the conditions of perinatal nursing in Ontario and how that matches maternal health outcomes? What are the reasons that you want to talk about underserved urban areas in a particular country or state or province? Give the hook that allows the reader to see the excitement and the interest and the meaning and the significance of this project in the same way you do, and then build from there. And then also so important, when you have written this up, proofread it yourself as much as you can, and then please don't be the last person looking at it. No one, not me, not my fellow co-hosts, not my fellow deans, not anyone in the history of the world is the best proofreader of their own work. Share a draft of your statement if you can with your referees, with other trusted mentors, with smart people outside of your field. Maybe that's your grandmother or your roommate or your neighbor or a professor in a different field. Give yourself time in the writing process to factor in time to get feedback from others, because we are always reading our own writing with all the invisible ink around the sides, which was our thought process going into it. And that means it always seems clear to us when it still might be clear as mud to other folks. So don't forget to do that. All right, I'm coming to the end because I want to make sure there are time for questions, but I just want to go over what we've covered. The statement of interest is your best opportunity to showcase your research or professional profile and your authentic voice as a scholar and a potential graduate student. To make sure it's effective for your audience, for the admissions committee, make sure you research the program. When thinking about what to write for your statement, it's helpful to remember these 5 questions. What? What is it you want to work on? More what? Contextualize that interest, that project, to demonstrate your awareness of the field and your understanding of how someone goes about learning about a particular problem, researching a question, or developing an expertise in that subfield. Because it looks different in philosophy than in microbiology, than in computational arts. Those just are very different enterprises. So what, more what, why me? Why you are well placed to take on this project and have the background, the experiences, and the personal strengths to succeed at it. Why here, with whom, why this is the right program to do it, and you've identified the right mentors to work with. And then what next? What is it ultimately that drives you to take on the extraordinary step of pursuing an advanced graduate degree? Do this by brainstorming, outlining, writing it up, and then giving yourself lots of time to proofread and share. And you will have an excellent statement of interest at the center of your graduate application. Now, I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to talk about one other application material that always comes up in the questions and that I know can leave people with a lot of questions. And that is the writing sample. Not all, but many or most graduate applications will request some sort of sample of writing from you. So if the statement of interest expresses your voice as a scholar and a potential graduate student, the writing sample demonstrates your skills and your capabilities. So this is sort of who you are. This is what you can do. And here's 2 frustrating pieces of advice people are often told. They are told, well, just submit whatever is your very best piece of writing, and then just submit whatever shows your interest in this particular field and subfield. And you start to see the tension here, right? You might be absolutely 100% committed to working on early 20th century British history, but it just so happens that the very best piece of writing you ever did was on medieval Islamic history. Just for whatever reason, things clicked and that showcases your writing. Your writing sample should be related to your interests in some ways. Don't submit a chemistry writing sample if you are applying to work in art history. But it doesn't have to be identical. The writing sample doesn't have to be about the research project. It doesn't actually have to be exactly from the same subfield. But you want to make sure it shows you're the kind of person who would be interested in that subfield. And you're the kind of person who could do work in that subfield. So showcase your strengths, but make sure that the strengths that you're showcasing are the ones that are relevant for this degree. So again, I'm going to use my own discipline here. If you were applying to do a PhD in moral philosophy, or what's sometimes called ethics, it might make sense to submit a piece of writing that was your best piece of writing that was in political philosophy. And the reason for this is the methods are quite similar. Lots of philosophers work on both. You might be tackling similar questions of what rights are or what duties we have to others, or how we might understand how to go about resolving conflicts in a way that respects and reflects justice. But it might not make sense to submit a writing sample in logic, even or philosophy of language, even though it is your very best piece of writing, if there was no evidence of the kind of work. On the other hand, if your referees say, no, this is so good, it makes sense for any kind of philosophy, then you should submit it. So fundamentally, it's a showcase of the strengths that you want the admissions committee to see. So choose a piece that demonstrates your critical strengths, your research strengths, and your communication strengths. So can you do analysis, critique, have your own perspective on a debate and not just regurgitate the ideas of others? Can you research a topic, being able to draw key points from your sources, choose the right sources and engage with that? And are you able to come to your own conclusion, to take a stand, to demonstrate your perspective on this problem? It will give the program evidence that you have the disciplinary knowledge and the disciplinary relevant skills to pursue advanced study in this area. And don't panic if you are basically, whatever is the best you have is the best for your application. So if you are still in your undergrad and you are thinking, well, I only have these short papers that I've written for my courses, how do I know that they're good enough? If they're the best that you've done and you're applying to graduate school, they're good enough to apply. It may be that this isn't the right fit for you, a particular program or so on, or that you need to develop it further and so on. One recommendation I have is to make sure you choose a paper that has already received expert feedback. In other words, that has been graded by a prof or TA. Take a look at that expert feedback. Doesn't matter if you got an A on it. If you got an A on the paper and the prof is saying, this is fantastic, just make sure that going forward, you fix the following 3 things. Get out your copy of Microsoft Word or whatever else. Go through and fix those 3 things before you submit it. You don't have to submit it in the condition in which it was submitted to the prof. In fact, it shows scholarly judgment to take someone's feedback, incorporate it, and then submit a new clean copy. Don't submit the copy with their scribbles on it. Read the scribbles, see what they're asking you to do it, and then submit a clean copy. One other thing that's worth mentioning, if the paper you have that is your best sample of your writing is too long, identify and select the strongest section. So if, for example, you're applying to a PhD program, your best piece of writing is your master's thesis, but it's 100 pages long. Identify and select the strongest section, and then provide a short abstract of what was cut before or afterwards. So you might have a quick summary, like a paragraph of your introduction, chapter 1. Then you're providing chapter 2, which is sort of 20 pages or something like that. And then you have a quick summary of where things go with chapter 3 and the conclusion. Again, just a quick paragraph summary. That allows people to read the very best work you did in your master's and have a sense of how it fits into the bigger project without being given 100 pages to read, which is too much for an admissions committee. So that's what I really wanted to say about the writing sample. Again, your statement of interest expresses your voice and your identity as a scholar. The writing sample demonstrates your skills, your capabilities, your achievements of a scholar. It should in some way be close to your interests, doesn't have to be identical because it's a showcase for your strengths. Just make sure the strengths you're showcasing are the ones that will help you in your degree. If at all possible, it's a good idea to choose one that's received feedback, i.e. has been graded by a prof or a TA. Incorporate that feedback. If you don't have anything that's received feedback, give yourself time and get feedback from a prof. You could even talk to the prof who graded it for the course if you know them well, if it was a small course, and say, I don't know if you remember the paper I wrote for your seminar. I'm thinking about using it in my graduate application. I've already incorporated the feedback you gave me when you graded it. Would you have time to take another look at it and let me know anything you think I should do? Now, profs are busy, especially if you're asking at the last minute. They may not have time, but they might well, and it doesn't hurt to ask. At the very least, if they're also writing you a reference letter, they can say, this person is incredibly diligent and responds very well to feedback or something like that. So it's always worth asking. And if it's too long, cut out the strongest section and provide a quick paragraph summary on either side of the rest so that we have a sense of how it fits into the bigger project but can focus on what you've given us. I think at this point, I am going to stop for questions. So I will call on Eileen to help me with this. But I want to say just very quickly, best of luck to all of you. And I really hope your applications go well.